Welcome back to Back Chat at the Arc in Headingley. Very special Back Chat this week as well, with a Wigan owner and chairman Ian Lenigan, from the Chief Executive of Leeds, Gary Hetherington, and Gary Schofield alongside us as well. It was a late substitute because we were hoping to be joined by Marwan Kukash of Salford today, but unfortunately 3 hours before the programme he pulled out because he wasn't feeling too well. We had a good discussion in the first half. We touched on the Super 8s. Gary, has the Super 8s worked? Is it working from what you can see so far?
I think it is, yes. And of course the real test is going to be after round 7, because 7 consecutive games, really high intensity games, and with so much at stake in most of the games anyway, they'll bring out the best and indeed the worst in teams. And I think it's creating a lot of interest amongst the fans, and certainly the television audiences have been very strong as well. And I think it's, players don't generally talk a great deal about games and what's happening at other teams and such. I've detected that they are talking a lot more about these, so there's an interest from players and indeed fans, not only in the results of their team, but in the results of other matches as well, because of course they all have a significant impact on how their team's going to fare.
But Ian, you're saying that the attendances are down in this Super 8. Why is that? I mean, we talk about working hard on it, but the season tickets still count for the Super 8. So why do you feel that sales are down?
I'll be honest, I don't know why the attendances are down. So when you're making a judgment as has the Super 8s worked, let's say the Super 8s are a lot better than what preceded it. 14 clubs with an 8-club playoff with no relegation was clearly wrong. So the Super 8s are a clear advantage over that. Whether they are better than 12 Super League teams with 1 relegation and a top 4 playoff, to me is not yet proven. But I would like to see proven. I would like to see that the Super 8s work. I think it's another example of us looking inwards. The fans of rugby league understand the Super 8s and think it's good and think it's competitive. The reality is television audiences, yes, are up, but that doesn't get us any income. The thing that Gary has commented upon as being very important to us, attendances are clearly down over last year and over the equivalent game in the regular season. So in other words, when Leeds play Wigan, when Leeds play Warrington, when Wigan play St Helens, whichever of those games, we're getting 20 to 25% less in the last 7 games of the seasons than we did before. That might be a blip. It might be to do with Thursday nights and the fact that Thursday night's game televised is 1 game out of 4, whereas it used to be 1 out of 6 games. So that might be having some impact on the attendances, but I don't think yet it's proven externally. It's proven internally. The fans like it, we like it, it's competitive, but the audiences are down and there's no extra television income.
The middle, sorry, Gary.
I was going to say, I think August is a factor in. Our attendance has always dipped in August, choose what. I think that is a factor. And also, obviously, we didn't know when the games were going to be. That's one of the downsides of the Super 8s. We only had 9 days' notice between the end of the regular season and our next home game, which was against Warrington. So that was August as well. So it didn't come as a surprise. A lot of our community initiatives that we would normally do for those games, we didn't do on that occasion. So I think there are some reasons, but of course, whether it'll get proven this year, I think it'll only get proven after a period of time, and that's realistically going to be 3 to 5 years. But I think the indications are pretty strong. The indications are pretty good. But yeah, I mean, we have to reserve judgment until we can do proper analysis and give it more time.
And I think what I'm saying is it's not yet proven. Yeah. I'd quite like the way it's working.
Yeah.
But with 3 games out of 7, we can't say for sure. I agree with both of the points about August and shortness of notice for the games that Gary's commented on. But I'd rather wait till the end of this season, certainly. And I think the comparison we should be making is against what the alternative was and which almost half of the clubs wanted to go with, which is a 12-team Super League with a top 4 playoff with guaranteed relegation of 1 club. I think that's what we should compare it against. But I'm not for a minute suggesting we change from where we are.
Yeah.
We've got to give this a good try because we have to have a medium and long-term strategy, not a short-term one.
The middle eights was tickling a lot of fancies before the season began, Gary, when people were saying that Leeds, the season they've had, and Bradford. How important then was Bradford's win over Salford in terms of giving that competition a bit of life? Because there was a bit of a danger of the Championship sides failing quite badly, wasn't it?
I think it was huge, and I think with the fact of the reaction what Jimmy Lowe's got from his players with that shocking performance against Wakefield, but if there was going to be a team that is going to beat Salford after their performances, it's going to be Bradford there. But yeah, it's good for the game there, and Lee will be thinking, well, we played 3 Super League teams and we've had it pretty tough. But what you find out is that with Hulky are with this Halifax, Sheffield, maybe making the numbers up. But I think there's a bit of quality there to add, and I think there's still a few more surprises in that qualifiers.
Yeah. So give it time is basically the message from around the table is give it time.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, I think so. Without a doubt, yeah, I do.
Okay.
For a club to get promoted into Super League, we want them to come and add value, and it's not good enough just to be able to win their competition, in my view, to actually come into Super League. They need to be able to show and demonstrate to themselves, apart from anybody else, that they are better. Or at least as good as a team that's already in Super League.
Is that not a flaw in this system then, in that you could have, and we were talking about this earlier, you could have a Lee or a Bradford, I mean Bradford have won now, but who could have gone through the entire middle eights without beating the bottom 4 Super League teams, still finish 5th, raise themselves for that game and find themselves in Super League next year, but having proved themselves not fit for purpose.
That would have been a possibility, but it's an unlikely one. And I think what the teams in the Championship are finding out is that it is tough. It's pretty tough playing against the Super League teams, and they're going to have to get better to be more competitive and ultimately to be better prepared for coming into Super League.
We've got a big international calendar, we hope a big international calendar coming up at the end of the year with a 3-match test series against New Zealand. Now we hanker for a test series against Australia, but that's not going to happen. But this is going to come in the shadow of a Rugby Union World Cup. How much should we worry about the Rugby Union World Cup from a rugby league point of view?
I think rugby as a general topic is quite useful for rugby league or for rugby union. I don't think we should be too concerned about it. Rugby union is very good at the international game. We are poor at it. We have a much better club game than rugby union, so I don't think we should be too preoccupied. I think the World Cup will give some interest in rugby generally, and that's part of the market that we are looking for. Provided we have a good series and provided we sell well at the Olympic Stadium for the England-New Zealand game, I think we'll come out of it on top rather than behind.
Is it still an uneasy relationship? You have a relationship with Leeds Carnegie, of course, the rugby union club we play out of Headingley. Is it still an uneasy relationship, or is that just from a certain generation who can remember when the likes of Gary Schofield were banned from playing rugby union because they played rugby league?
No, I don't think it is, no. And I've certainly, I've been chief executive of the rugby union club now for 15 years. And I've seen it's a different relationship nowadays. It's not really a relationship, to be honest. I don't think there is a relationship there. But in the past, of course, it was opposing camps. That's no longer the case anymore. And I think rugby union folk prefer to watch rugby union. I think rugby league folk prefer to watch rugby league, and probably don't necessarily watch the other sport. But I think the World Cup, as Ian says, will raise the profile of rugby generally. So I think that's good for both codes. I think there is and ought to be more synergy between the two sports. I think the games are coming closer together. The fact that high-profile players are switching codes and playing. So I think all that is very actually helpful for both codes, and I could see where both codes could actually help each other by working a bit closer together. Present, that's not happening really, and as I said, I don't think there is a relationship, but there's certainly not an uneasy one.
I think what there is respect.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
We, in the way Gary obviously has an intimate knowledge of rugby union because of his involvement with Carnegie, we have a lot of involvement with Saracens and with Bath particularly. We train with Bath twice a year, the squads, they get on well together. Bath's full of ex-rugby union, rugby league players anyway, obviously. But the biggest thing I notice is the respect that rugby union has for the athleticism and the speed and the power of rugby league. There's no doubt that mutual respect is good for our two games.
Okay, what about in the foreseeable future? I remember the BBC's rugby union correspondent, when rugby union went professional, saying that rugby league has now lost its raison d'etre. That was 20 years ago, and clearly it hadn't. But do you see a day in our lifetimes where the two codes actually come back together? Has rugby league, because you listen to rugby union interviews, England interviews, a lot of rugby league voices on there, as you've said. Do you see the days of two codes coming together?
No, I don't ever see that being the case. I can see the case for a couple of games a year of a hybrid code. I think that would be very good for the game. And it's certainly something that we've been looking at on and off over the last couple of years, and I think Gary has as well. But there are people who support rugby union, people who support rugby league. I like both of them. I just happen to prefer by a mile rugby league. But I'll go and watch international rugby union games, but I wouldn't go and watch club rugby union games because they're not of the same nature as the rugby union international calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the hybrid concept is an interesting one, and I think that will happen. And certainly there's attempts in Australia and quite a lot of interest to make something happen over there. I know this debate was, as you said, 20 years ago, and there is a possibility it could. It's unlikely in my view because, as Ian pointed out, they are two different sports in many ways. They're two different games. They were born out of one, but they're now very different. But in many ways, they are coming back together in the way that rugby union is developing its style of play. No, I think the people who could make it work potentially are the television companies, because that's where the money is, and that's where, in many ways, the influence is. Yeah. And if they decided they wanted to make it work, then there's a possibility. But why would they? They currently have got the benefit of two sports. Why would they want to convert that into just one?
Well, not everyone has. BT's got loads of money. What if BT decided the hybrid game? I mean, 20 years ago, if you'd have said to a cricket purist, you know, one day one of the most popular forms of cricket is going to be wearing pyjamas and playing 20 over cricket, they'd have laughed you off the planet. So if you have the hybrid game, and it's actually quite successful, and it's actually attracting a lot of people, does that then create an appetite for more of the same, not just those one-off?
I think it's the occasional games rather than a proper serious sport. But I think the opportunity to play 2 or 3 games a year at international or particularly club level is something we should be doing. But it's the whole story of the strategic plan for rugby league, isn't it? Have we got one? Have we got one that will take us to the national and international level? It's certainly a lot better now. If you look at Blake Solly and what he's been doing with Super League in terms of the far better professionalism of the launches and of other elements of the Super League game, I'm a great believer that we've gone forward some, but we've got to go forward 100%.
And I think the opportunity for us, actually, you talk about 2020 cricket, I think our potential 2020 for rugby league is the nines. I think to develop the nines game, I think that could open us up so much potential, particularly for international competition as well. But you know, I think to see the best teams playing against each other with their best players in a nines competition, that's a terrific game of rugby. Yeah. It's a much better game than sevens. It's a proper game of rugby, and I think rugby league lends itself perfectly to developing the nines game, not as to take over from the 13-a-side game, but purely as an alternative, just in the same way as Cricket 2020 is an alternative to the 3-day, the 5-day form of the game, and both could really thrive. And I think that's where rugby league, both internationally and domestically, has a real opportunity.
Well, it has, but commercially we've got to get it right. We've got to get the television aspect of it right. Gary is correct that there's a big opportunity, whether it's hybrid or whether it's nines. I was at the inaugural nines in New Zealand, and it was a great competition, there's no doubt. And it's proper rugby. It's proper rugby league. So I'm quite a convert to that view, but I'm more concerned about what the financial promotion profile opportunities are in anything that we do, and I just don't think we've got a strategy.
You'd have loved to have played in a hybrid game, would you?
Yeah, I would have done, to be honest with you, but I think as well, when you look at the way rugby union's with rugby league, I think union need league more from a playing point of view, don't they? Because if you look at the players who have gone to rugby union, look at the coaching staff, what they've had, you know, as I say, start with Phil Larder, then with Mike Ford, and now Faz is there, and you look at the players who've gone. So yeah, we bring, I think, league as a product more to rugby union, what they could bring to us. We know we brought the union players over with Jonathan Davis's day, but I think we, as a game and players, what we can bring in the skill level, that factor is more important for us. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
But we've got to get the profile that goes with that.
Talking about profile, the Millwall game, just explain why you're taking a game to Millwall.
There are 2 clear reasons. One of them is the purest reason, which is it's better to have rugby league played consistently in London, and I think the Challenge Cup final, the Wigan Catalans game, and then the England-New Zealand game together is good for rugby league to give people a chance to watch live rugby league, because live rugby league is a totally different game from watching it on television, and that's what we want the southern audience to appreciate. But the selfish reasons, the Wigan reasons, there are 3 of them really, and they're not going to be proven or not proven over one game. It's number 1, we've got to get commercial sponsorship with the major companies, and they're in London. They're not in Wigan or Manchester or Leeds. Number 2, there's a great pipeline of players, athletes in London, who haven't got the opportunity to go into a proper academy and find their way through into Super League. And number 3, we want to grow our fan base. And our fan base in these days of social media and Wigan TV and the whole online resource, Sky, for example, showing games online rather than just on Sky Television, is an indication of the fact that we can get revenue from members and from people. Even if you get 1,000 people coming to a Wigan game, that's pushing 200 grand a year towards our revenue that would be nice to have from around the Greater South East. So it's those 3 reasons: sponsorship, fans, and pipeline of players.
And just to remind us briefly, it's the week after Wembley. It's the Saturday after.
I should be publicising
yes,
it, of course,
yeah,
shouldn't I? Thank you for that. 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, the 5th of September, at Millwall, which is 4 minutes on the train from London Bridge.
Okay, well, we'll be talking more about that and lots of other issues in our final part of this special back chat. Make sure you join us just after this break.